And I don't have an agenda. Okay. I'd like to call this workshop to order. It is actually 6 p.m. on September, what is today? 7th. And we do have a full quorum present, and I would like to open the floor to discussion regarding our budget. We've all had a chance to look at it, and the figures that I gave you, the preliminary figures I gave everyone. I would like to open it up for comments and questions. Boy. Okay, so we go with it? My proposed budget, which is the balanced budget, was based on the 0.658 cents per hundred. Now, I just went to an appraisal board meeting this morning. Appraisal district is going up in their budget by 10%, which is going to shift cost for appraisals. It's the second page on that budget I sent you. I had increased it by 1,000. Well, it's going to be 27,261 instead of 25,000. Instead of 25,500. So I'm short there a little bit by a couple $1,000, but that's what's happening.
Which bullet point is it?
You're on the second page of this, the very top of the second page. It says appraisals.
Okay, I see it now.
Yeah, and last year it was 24,500, and so this year I had increased it by $1,000, figuring that they probably were going to increase the cost. And actually, in reality, they're increasing the cost up to 27,261. Like I say, they elected to an increase in budget of 10%, and it wasn't like the board talked about. There were no exorbitant increases. It was all pretty much the cost of doing business just increased. There's an increase in cost in just about everything, and that's what we're seeing. And I based my figures on the what do they call it? The voter approval rate, which is the higher of the two possibilities, instead of the no new revenue rate. It's a difference of about 3 cents per hundred, but what I'm looking at with the increased cost of everything, it just seems like the responsible thing to do to look at the increased cost and how that's going to affect us.
That being said, Mayor, so next year when we come up for our budget meeting, say we go with your proposed rate of 0.658 plus seeking an interest plus 164, that puts us at 0.882, correct?
822.
822. All right. So then that's going to be our tax rate for next year for no new revenue. Is that correct?
No. You don't know what it is. That tax rate has nothing to do with next year's values. The appraisal district comes up with whatever values based on reappraisals or whatever. And so what happened this year, we went from a valuation last year about 74 million up to 84 million. They increased because they reappraised land, and so it increased the value in Ivanhoe by basically $10 million. And so with a $10 million increase, the voter, or the what they call the no new revenue rate is what it's the rate that would bring in the same amount of money that you made last year, that you brought in last year. So you increase the value, the rate goes down. That's why last year our overall rate was 91 cents. Remember? And this year's rate is going down considerably because of the increased value. But we have nothing to do with that value. That's set by the appraisal district. Now, I don't anticipate next year's value increasing by that much. There is a little bit of a difference because anything that's new construction is not included in that. So that's kind of a freebie. But am I making sense to you, Will?
I got it.
A good question for Mr. Luther, I think at some point in time soon, will be at what intervals they intend on reevaluating both raw land values and improvement values. And it could be
It's supposed to be 3 years.
every 3 years. Okay. I would guess, based on the, frankly, in my perspective, the depressed valuations of the raw land, at the very least, that we'll see a similar step up at the 3-year mark when they re-engage the raw land values, and potentially even again on the improvements, depending on what the market does at that point. But
Well,
I think
it
at least
depends on market too.
right.
Yeah.
I think at least the raw land, because at present I think that we're still probably 50% under market on that. So
I don't know. I think we're getting in line.
we're way closer. We're 2.5 times what we were previously looking at base land values, but we're still 50% under market. And I don't anticipate them actually going full market value on anything.
I don't think that's true, David. I mean, looking at my lot,
I can say that this year that the appraisal district sent people out and walked my property and looked at every building that was there.
Wow.
And that they were doing that with everybody. That was their goal, was to touch base and physically walk the properties of the owners out here.
It's come a long way in the last few years. They're doing a lot more work.
yeah. And in reality, that was one of the discussions today at the board, was the fact that it had been so long since appraisals, properties had been reappraised and brought up to somewhat, somewhat closer
So
to market value.
the only notes that I had were, I had an exclamation by the Marshal Department expenses. And then code enforcement, you had said that was not the final number.
Well, that, like I say, the last thing I is, where am I missing money? And it was, oh my God, code enforcement wasn't included in here anywhere, and so all I could come up with at that point was $1,200. We'd have to
Okay.
shuffle some stuff around to basically give them some more money. But that's the best I could do at the last minute.
Apologies,
say
Mayor. I do not have the budget sheet in hand because I brought the wrong vehicle to the meeting and left it
cool.
in my work truck. I believe 117 or 177,000. I can't remember which one. The American Rescue Funds. Are those currently budgeted in?
They're not broken down.
Well, are they being utilized at present, or do we have a budget surplus due
We
to
haven't
those?
gotten the money yet. No.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly when we'll get that money. And what our auditor told us, if you're anticipating money coming in, you put it in the budget.
Right.
And in order to maintain the balanced budget, you put it in as an income, you put it in, and the other end is an expense. Now, we're not going to expense all that money right away. We're not sure exactly how that's going to look, but I do have to put it in the budget. And the other, $350,000, the same thing. We have to put it in the budget. Now that we know is all going to be expensed, but the 177.5,
Okay.
we have to, it's like Will was saying the other day. We have an opportunity to maybe do some of the IT stuff through that. So we have to.
And that's kind of the direction that I was going with it. If we're budgeting an anticipated revenue, and we have some things that we'd already like to earmark funds for, do we need to go ahead and work those lines in contingent upon that revenue arriving, or are those
No.
things that we work?
That's
No,
what you were
no.
looking for last time, was a bullet point for the IT expense.
Well, the thing
And
is,
Tommy said the money is available.
the way that would work is, when we realize what things qualify under that, then we can just charge them to that as an expense under the expense. I mean, because we can't define exactly right now what qualifies.
Sure.
Because we're just learning that. But we do have the expenditure going out, so we can spend up to the $177,500,
And that's half of the grant. And
that's
we'll
what we're going to get.
That's half.
That's what we'll get this year
We'll get the next half
in 1
23.
year.
And then what we probably need to do is run it through our administrator.
That's exactly. We're not going to do anything
Next year's
until
approval.
until that fund. our grant administrator tells us, yeah, that's a go and acceptable.
Awesome.
Because if we
So we can't put in the budget, oh, we're going to do this because we don't know if that's going to be acceptable or not.
right, and if we don't do it correctly, then we have to pay it back.
And that's
Well,
not a
the
good thing.
clawback. That's an ugly term.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an ugly term and it hurts.
Yeah.
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 So we have to be very careful how we spend this money. I mean, we have to make sure that it's
That's why we hired someone because we could have
T's
done
and
it.
I's, yeah.
This money we could have done ourselves.
I's and T's.
But when you
Yeah, 6 and 2/3.
Yeah, but when you have this amount of money and the possibility of clawback, you want to make sure that it's done properly. We
and
don't.
it's documented correctly.
Yeah. So anyway, does that answer
I'm
that
having
question?
trouble with this budget.
Okay.
I'm not in real favor of raising 8% on the taxes.
Well, it's not even 8%.
Or-
It ends up as 3.5.
3.5.
I thought it was 8, and it's not. And that's one of the things that David and I had a conversation about, and then I had a conversation with Lynette about. And it's not an 8% increase.
Okay.
It's 8% of the 62 cents. You know, the 62.56?
0.6256 times 0.08.
Would actually come up to 67 cents. And so that was my question with David today. And that's where David and I were looking at these figures, and we came up with 67.17. It should have been the 8%. Now, they said that everybody could take an 8% this year, but you had to have at least, what David told me a while ago, was there had to be at least one person that requested an exemption based on the disaster. And there have been none that have requested an exemption based on that. So we're stuck at 3.5. That's why it's only 65 cents instead of, in how they come to all these figures, you have to go to their 17-page worksheet.
Yeah, but none of these
To try
numbers,
to figure it out.
You're using numbers and none of them are on this sheet. It's
They're
really hard to
on-
follow.
Oh, listen, you know, like I say, I sat down with David almost 2 hours.
Yeah, okay.
And he was basing all the figures on the 75 or 76,000 that he initially
76
certified. But that didn't include the amount that was under protest. When Lynette came in with the figures, she based it on $84 million because there was that much under protest. It is so confusing. And so I got back, and I hadn't taken this with me because I was going to an appraisal board meeting. I wasn't going to, and so when David and I sat down and we were looking at figures, I said, okay, is that the figure, the certified value? And he said, yes. Well, I get back, and it's like, no, wait a minute. Over here, it's 84 million. So I called him back, and because the other thing is he was going to talk to Lynette about the 8% that we were supposed to be able to go up. But it looks like maybe we're not. And then I said, okay, where in this whole scenario is the de minimis rate? Because there's something called the de minimis rate. So
What is
I'm
the
still up in the air.
Is there a deadline for when people have to have
The rates adopted?
applied for an exemption due to?
I don't know. I'd have to call. You'd have to. I just found that out at 5 o'clock. No, I don't know. It may have already passed.
Okay. Well, it's interesting to find out because it sounds more and more like next year we may not have an opportunity again to increase revenue. And I really like to highlight, I do this every year, and I'm sure people get tired of hearing it, but there is a difference between increasing tax rate and increasing tax revenue. And it's all key and based in the valuation of the properties. As the values go up, the rate goes down. And if we make the same amount of money every year perpetually, year on year,
You do less and less.
then we have roughly on average 4% less buying power year over year. The figures that I've studied and heard for this last year were closer to 17 to 20% inflation. And I went to the store today, and a gallon of milk that usually runs $3.65 was $4.34. So that sounds pretty close, if not a little undershot. So again, the notion of whether or not we're I'm gone now. Was that me? It must be me. So again, the question of whether or not we're increasing tax revenue or increasing tax rates is something that's worth the public understanding, because even with an 8% increase in revenue this year, we would have seen a drop in the tax rate.
Right. And it's not an 8% increase in revenue.
It's 3.5.
You know,
Is it 3.5?
it's at three. Well, the rate can be increased by 3.5%, which is why it's not 67 cents the way I calculate. You know, it was only 65 cents.
So it's a 3.5% increase of the rate generates an 8% increase in revenue.
No, the 8%. Forget the 8%.
That's out the door unless somebody
yeah,
files
that's
for an
out the door.
exemption.
Yeah. Unless you want to go up in a rate, and then it triggers a tax.
Rollback election?
An election.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to understand a lot more. David has not called me back about my question, and I will inform everybody as we find out. Right now, what Lynette sent, and I had given you a copy of this, as the voter approval rate was 0.822, which is almost 10 cents less than last year's rate. So the rate is our tax rate is going down. The overall value is going up, but again, a lot of that is going to be land value. It's land value.
And that's the best place
all
that
these
we
people
can
that are
see
sitting
it.
on vacant lots are going to begin to pay some taxes now.
Right. They'll pay $2 or $3 extra. The folks that have improved properties will pay
Pay
a
less.
few dollars less. So
Yep.
it's shifting, truth and valuation, getting the playing field going. But the only way that people that live out here full time, that have homes, even weekenders, the only way that they're going to see a tax break is if the base land evaluation gets sorted out over the next few assessments. And this is a great opportunity for us because it's the largest jump that we've seen on it to date, and it puts things in a position. Folks with improved properties actually do see a reduction in tax rate due to that value offset.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the best time to take that 8% if we can. People are still going to see a reduction in tax rate.
Is it 8% or is it 5.25%?
Well, it's either 3.5 or 8, and so I'm going to do some research now.
Find out if there's a deadline.
Right.
So we can't set the approve a budget tonight.
Oh, no, we can't. Oh, the budget is going to be approved September 29th.
Alright.
And we'll have a public hearing on September 28th. And then the budget and the tax rate will be actually set on the 29th. This is a workshop to talk about, questions we have. Now, the biggest increase in the budget, you'll notice, is law enforcement.
I'm okay with
And
that.
everybody, I think, is in support of that.
I could live with a tax rate of 0.658 if we give over 65 a $5,000 exemption.
Well, and that's another thing that would increase the rate for overall by 1 penny. It's not a major. I thought it would be more.
And that's to secure the same revenue, total
Yes.
revenue?
Yeah, it
think-
would be approximate now because the calculation that David did today was based on the 76 million, not the 84 million. So it will be different, but this gives us a basic idea. What happened when with the exemption, it went down, the value went down $1 million, and that's what he had said. For every $5,000, it basically takes your value down $1 million.
Right.
Okay, that increased the tax rate by a penny. So it's not a major increase. I was afraid it would be more. Because
I think that's something that would be a win-win.
What's a comment? What's our conversation around the over 65?
My thoughts are, and I get back to what Skip's thoughts were on the standpoint, if whatever we decide tonight, that is what we're gonna have the workshop and the final meeting on September 29th to vote on it, right? So basically, tonight, we need to decide what these numbers need to be, right?
Well, final decision is gonna be the 29th, but in
But it'd
some
be better
things,
if we had the numbers in place before then, right?
well, we can't have the final numbers in place until we have final numbers from, it's like today, because the 84 million is basically the certified value. Yeah. Now, what might fluctuate is the amount that we can, whether it goes 3.5% or 8% over and that's not of the total value, it's of the rate. See, the base rate, no new revenue rate is 62 cents. And so it would be 8% over that, which would bring it to 67 cents if we could go 8% instead of 65.
Okay, all right, I guess what I'm saying is, maybe I should form this in a question. Do we all agree that code enforcement needs to be 2,600?
No,
2,600?
that's what's in the budget.
Well, we had
only
1,200,
1,200.
we said should be 2,600.
So it's more like 15,000,
Yeah.
what it should be.
Oh, no, okay. So the 1,200 is way off from the 15,000. It should be 15,000, you saying?
In an ideal situation.
That's a huge difference, to me.
Well, like I say, if I did some calculations today, if we were able to go the 8% over the, like they said we would, it would be 12,000 something for code enforcement.
But at 3.5%,
The 3.5%.
Do we have any historical data on the past expense of code enforcement?
Well, it's,
we
I
had
see the budget.
15,000 in the budget last year. it
We had
says here.
15,000 in the budget last year, and
And how
the
much-
way it was expensed,
Yes.
because it was, because of all
That's
the
the
different
question.
categories. Yeah,
Yeah,
no. I'm looking at. Okay. Yeah.
7,000.
Hmm?
I was looking at 21, we had 7,000. Proposed 15, but I don't have the last month, I don't know what we spent.
Where's code? Code enforcement. Yeah.
See,
It shows, we budgeted 7,000 last year, but I don't see
no,
where.
we budgeted 15,000, but,
Oh,
in
yeah, I'm
in
looking at
actual, we have
2020.
spent, according to this, 2,616.47.
That's where the
And this
26
is-
came from, yeah.
Yeah, this is our last month's,
So with that
Yeah.
being said, I don't see where we need 15. I mean, if we've only spent 26 of the 15,000,
Yeah,
why not just put like 4,000 instead of 15?
right. Well, like I say,
Well, by the same token, how much, what have we spent funds on in code enforcement? Part of that is taking care of hauling things off and getting things disposed of and different things like that. I think that we know that there's lots of that work to do. I mean, all
and
we have to
what's
do is.
happened this year because of COVID, everything was on hold.
hold.
You couldn't take a junk vehicle away because they suspended all of that. And so Now that we're back into
Okay.
Actually,
some,
we've only
makes
started the
sense.
last 2 or 3 months
So-
of code enforcement.
yeah,
So
they didn't require people to renew their license, you know, the
Right.
licenses and all that stuff. So everything was suspended because of COVID. It's been a really strange situation. That's why we only spent $2,600.
but those restrictions have been lifted now. Is that correct? So do we intend to move forward with cleanup?
That's a huge thing.
So then,
Say again, CD, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Councilman. The Code Enforcement Department has already started working with the judge in getting the documents that's needed so that they can proceed.
so
Thank
we're
you.
we're
Thank you.
gonna have some need of capital to get some things potentially demolished, hauled off, etc.
Yeah,
that
anytime
mic
there's
on,
some
Terry?
demolishing taking place.
The green light.
Is that little green light on?
There it is.
Okay.
Last month, Missy and I did 14 administrative warrants on junk vehicles, trailers, things like that. 14 of them, there was 4 there. Rest of them were already moved out. And as of last week, the 4 that I did on the warrant, administrative warrants, were off the property without the city having to pay to get it moved.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what's happening now is that people are just, you know, they get the notification.
They're
and
responding.
They're responding and getting rid of the vehicles.
Nice.
That's the idea. That's the ideal thing.
I guess my
Ja-
question is, are we looking at $1,200 as the budget to leave?
Well, it's okay. It's either $1,200 or we cut somewhere else to add, to, you know, to bring it in.
We already got to add another 1761 to appraisals.
Right. Right. And that I got notified today.
Yeah.
So you have to begin to juggle.
That's the challenge with the budget, balanced budget, is that you don't actually get to do anything new.
No, you just kind of have to. And where we've always cut, that we could cut was, you know, building material or whatever. We've taken it out of there. Like I say, you look at like law enforcement. Like I say, that was the biggest increase, but there's such a demand for more law enforcement. And I look at Terry's over budget right now. Law enforcement is over budget, but we got some reimbursement from that coronavirus relief fund, which brings in more money to his line item, so he can be over budget right now. But if we're going to do what he's done this year and maybe improve it a little bit next year, there was a need to increase the budget. Anyway.
Terry, let's start.
One other question, Mayor. I
Yes, sir.
looked on the computer because I knew y'all were going to be talking about this. Our call volume for our department has went from 30 and 40 calls a month to last month. Mike went on 100 calls himself, and I did 100 calls myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's including code enforcement stuff. So it's our numbers are growing like this because we're taking care of some of the problems we're having.
Are we separating law enforcement call-outs from code enforcement call-outs?
It's all on my computer. If I get in a computer, I'll screw it up, so I don't know.
Well,
So-
that might be something that we could use some better visibility on. If their time's being split there with code enforcement, then, well, regardless, the revenue is what the revenue is. And thankfully, hopefully, knock on wood, we're gonna see that American track how much of the law enforcement
Time.
budget and time is being absorbed by code enforcement, and then figure out how to
Separate it out as a separate line item.
yeah,
That-
figure
I-
out how to budget code enforcement in a way that it, they can pull out code enforcement rather than law enforcement funds.
Moving forward, that's probably a great idea, but today we've got numbers that we need to run with, and we don't have any concrete number to be able to break out, so I have to agree with the mayor on this.
Councilman Blackstone, I believe if Missy were here, she would be able to clarify the number of calls that she has provided to the marshal's department, since she
Okay.
oversees the code of violations.
Got you.
And that would, if she were here, we would have those numbers.
Okay, thank you, CD.
One thing that we could cut is having a part-time person on the road crew. We had 2 part-times, and one of the persons that has been doing part-time is gonna be working full-time. But I left the part-time one in there. So we could cut that part-time person. And that's,
So they have 4.5 people?
Yeah.
Instead of 4, they'll have 4.5?
that's what I put in there. But we can cut that half person. You know, it's 16 hours a week. And it would save us $10,000.
So last year we were 3.5 people.
4.
No, we had 4, but there were 2 part-time people that, between the 2 of them, they each did 16 hours, and so it was like a full-time person, 32 hours. One of the persons that we have now that's come on he has a CDL. He is able to, really good at operating equipment. So our supervisor is wanting to increase his time to the full 32 hours instead of 16.
I think I would hate to see him go. He's the one that enjoys operating that maintainer and would do it all
and
day, every day.
no,
and
we
he
don't
does
want.
really
He's
good.
not the one that we would have to let go. But that's the only thing we could do right now that I'm seeing is cut that other
What-
part-time person.
An actual force reduction?
What if,
I would hate to see that.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the
Well-
thing. Right now,
Yeah,
you know,
Yes, but you have to understand, in talking with those folks, it's something that the director would like to do with this particular person. It's a problem, and he would like to,
he just
and it gives us an opportunity to,
we probably should not.
Good.
We should have
right,
this
right,
conversation
right. Well, this
somewhere else.
conversation is yeah.
Sorry.
right.
But
We're not
that is-
naming names, but that's,
No.
it's a position, if we can save 10,000, we can use it somewhere else.
or,
and
yeah,
and
that's,
of course,
Or replace them, you know.
well, again, growth. Do we stick with our 4 people? Do we have 4.5? You know.
I don't think Mr. Marshall is ever looking for something for his people to do. I think that they stay busy.
Oh, constantly.
When we look around, there's plenty to do, so I don't know that that's an expendable position, or ever will be.
You know, but you look at, okay, where can I cut and where can I put?
well,
where can I
we have
move
a,
and-
okay, I'm gonna throw this out just
Right.
for conversation. We're looking at a part-time clerk. Okay? Need it. But maybe we do 20 hours a week
Instead of 28.
instead of 28. That ballpark save you $6,000.
Well,
I mean, and I don't have
no,
all
and
the
I
exact
get that.
numbers.
I get that too. And the reason I did the 28, first I thought about 20. And the reason I went ahead with the 28 was because we really need somebody that can handle the window, and we're open from 10 to 5. And we just forgot Saturday because we're
May-
open on Saturday, but we wouldn't have a part-time person on Saturday. It would just be on Tuesday through Friday, and only when the doors are open, not when, you know, because like Missy comes in at 9 o'clock from 9 to 5. But the part-time person would be from 10 to 5 to cover the public coming in and to answer the phones. So, yeah, that, you know, I thought about that too. Yeah, where do you cut? Where
Yeah,
do you-
I mean, 20, but as we see that,
because the other thing is what we're looking at is having someone sitting there talking to the public, taking permit applications or whatever, and that would be the only person there. No, if you go to 20 hours instead of 28, then you got to have somebody else man that desk. You see what I'm saying?
so,
It's a tough.
I think it might also be worthwhile to look into the additional funding and see if things like code enforcement in these trying times is something that is available to expense those funds with. We may not find any good fortune in it, but it may be that we look into that and find out that there's some clause in there that allows for supporting whatever it is in the community that's ordinance related, or that one of these other areas can find some support and we can transfer some funds over later. At present, we're talking about manpower versus execution of policy, and I don't think that we can continue to effectively execute policy if we don't have the proper manpower. So maybe it's just something that we have to wait and see what the rules on the funding are and see if we'll give that some flexibility within the season.
And that's a possibility, but it's a possibility that we can't bank on. Now, what I d-
Might not transfer later if we find the funds for that.
Yep. And, oh, yeah, and that's always a possibility, and, you know, thank God, we have always come in, you know, with more income than we had anticipated, because we budgeted conservatively, we don't, but,
This
You know,
all
you
boils
can't bank
down
on
to our
that.
best guess.
that's a
Best- it's
guesstimate,
best-
and
Our
you
best
can't.
guess.
and that's why I said maybe we do 20 hours. If we see we do very well, then we can change and make a transfer down the road. It's just option. I'm not, and I think they need it. I'm all for adding people, and I know that we're understaffed tremendously.
And CD is, you know, more than justified the need.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
the need is
but-
just,
And I think that, but the other thing is we don't know what tax rate we're looking at either.
well,
If we're looking at 0.658,
at least.
okay?
And I'd like to see what the when I figured if we could go the 8%, which is 0.67, it would add $10,300 to our budget,
And the only way that I could support,
which could go to code enforcement.
the only way I could support the 8% is that we give the 5,000 to 65 and over exemption.
Right. Okay. That would work too.
Go to 8%.
So we can do those figures. As soon as I get some input from David and Lynette, what I will do is just let council know what, you know, where we are and how we can, and what it would represent. I've got to get final figures on exactly what the $5,000 would do. Now, I don't think it'd be much more than a penny. You know, it wouldn't make that big a difference. And if is everybody pretty much in agreement with an over 60, at least a $5,000 over 65?
Just so everybody knows, a penny increase on the tax rate on a $100,000 property is $10.
Yeah. So it's not a major thing. 1 penny is okay, you know, it's not bad.
So what do you need, a motion?
Well, I'm just saying, if everybody's kind of in agreement right now, I will adjust the budget accordingly and get
So we
David
need a
and.
straw vote?
Yeah, it's
Straw
not anything official, but then what I can do is get both our tax collector and our appraiser to work out the calculations
I
based
would
on
be
that.
in agreement with that.
Yeah.
I'm
For the
agree.
purpose of you retooling the budget,
Right.
I'm showing my support for a $5,000 over 65
Okay,
I
exemption.
think we all have done
Okay.
that.
okay. Then I'll get those figures calculated, and once I get those figures from Lynette, I will just forward them to you, because she's the one who has to do all the calculations.
Mayor, just, I'm just gonna throw this out there, because I went through the budget, and
I knew you
maybe,
would.
maybe we could take some funds out of street signs. Maybe we could take, training and administration. We got 2,000 in there, maybe do 1,000, depending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's 2,000 in each department is what you put
Right.
in.
And we could, you know what we could do? We could maybe take 500 out of each department.
Each department.
Yeah, I mean,
There are a lot of opportunities for Zoom meetings and whatever trainings. Now, I don't know, they are opening up to, on-site stuff, but I think even with the on-site stuff, they're offering opportunities for those that prefer. So we could do that. How would that look if we took 500 off
that's a
of each
great
one?
idea.
That would be
That's a great idea.
That's good, I
$1,500.
think that would,
That would
it
help.
helps balance, gets us where
Okay.
we need to be. City property maintenance, maybe take a couple thousand out of that one.
Okay. Out of which one?
City property maintenance, we got 14,000 in there.
Ooh,
is that where
that
the
we need.
monuments fall in?
That we need.
Is that where
That-
the monuments fall in, CD?
Right. And, yeah, we have expense on our maintenance. I mean, that has been,
Way over.
yeah.
We have an air conditioner go out in this building, there's $3,036.
I mean, you don't know.
But we've had those expenses every year.
So if an air conditioner goes out, is that a capital expenditure to replace it, or is that a repair?
Repair, because it's already existing.
If you put in a whole new unit?
You're just replacing what's already there.
By the auditor, if it's transitioned from like a standard air conditioning unit to a heat pump, probably would be a problem. I don't know. I'm not into those long-term, what do you call it when it's the.
Oh.
Well, that's right. What do you call it when it's long-term,
Depreciation.
that's the word, yes. I leave that up to the number crunchers.
Now,
Yeah.
if it's a repair, say we blow a fan motor, then that's gonna be an expense.
Maintenance, yeah.
Maintenance. Because one of my operations, I had to replace 10 AC units that had one of them big cranes out there. Capital expenditure. Because they were all brand new big units, and I had that big crane. So,
Well,
I don't know the law.
as of July 31st, that's 2 months remaining, we have spent 90% of the $14,000. We've spent $12,494.
Yep.
I looked at, tried to look at what we've spent so far to see what we do.
Right.
And this, none of that were capital expenses, because CD knows which ones are, we can charge to capital expenses.
So do
but-
we have a miscellaneous bullet in here? I've looked, I thought I saw one, but I'm going between several different.
Under 606007, under office administration.
Contingency miscellaneous. We reduced that by $6,000 to $2,000. It had been $8,000. But there were different things that we're charging to different,
Yeah. It's
Oh,
still-
Yeah.
it's still the
okay,
same
okay.
amount.
We're still dealing
That's
with
one of those things that-
moving targets.
Right.
yeah. Okay, so we are gonna reduce the training by 500. Is there anything else that we've come up with that? Like you said, signs, street signs, we spent we budgeted $8,000. and that was what was budgeted last year. Street signs, okay. We had 8,000 budgeted, we have not spent that much.
$165.
Yeah, 165.
$164.
That doesn't seem right.
So, yeah, it doesn't seem right because I know we've spent more on signs than that.
Street signs, we have, it says $164.
Yeah,
No wonder there's so many street signs missing.
okay.
Okay.
Tilt it up, CD,
coming
so you don't
out
have to
of-
bend over so far.
Coming out of that line item will be about $4,035, because we just had to buy, street sign posts. They were out. When we did the detour, that used up what they had in stock.
Is that going to be out of this year's budget?
Yes, it's already been expensed.
But,
It's $4,000.
yeah,
So that puts you at about 5,000. So you still got 3,
Less than 5.
less than 5, but you could put.
well, the question is, could we reduce the $8,000 budget by maybe $3,000 and leave $5,000 for next year's budget for signs?
That's up to the council and Mr. Marshall. We all know that we don't have a bunch of street signs out that we get complaints about on a regular basis.
Oh, that's true. We're
And we
missing
kind
so
of
many
held up
street
on
signs, it's not
doing
funny.
anything with that so far this year.
Isn't that a requirement for the 911 service, that we have street signs?
Terry?
I'm sorry, what?
Street signs for 911 service?
Are they
A
required?
requirement?
If we write a citation, they gotta be there. Like the ones on the dam.
No, we're not talking about speed limit signs or anything. It's just regular street identification
Street
signs.
signs identification for 911 purposes.
Somebody runs a stop sign at whatever intersection.
Yeah. It's marked on there. What I'm trying to think of, you're asking, do we have to have all the signs on there?
Right.
Do we need to have street sign identification markers for
Yeah.
911 purposes?
I will have to look it up. I Google, when think I'm lost and I'm on the wrong road, I Google it because, like you said, there's not street signs. But I'm not for sure. I know EMS and everybody wants it, but I don't know if it's required.
I think that we could probably do at least 2,000 out of that.
Is everybody in agreement?
Well, we still need a lot more street signs than we have out there right now. I don't know
Sir?
what I don't know what street signs cost, but we need a lot more because there's a whole lot of them missing. What does a street sign cost?
Around $100 a pole. The pole, the mounting bracket, and the sign itself.
So if we have 50 of them missing, that's $5,000.
And that's also the cost today, right? Not a year from now, right? So if we're saying $100 today, it's probably gonna be $120 a year from now, give or take.
Well, if the post is there though, all we have to do is replace the sign.
Right, and maybe the top cap. Well, the top cap would have to be there for the sign to be mounted.
But I've seen a lot of them, the pole is there, one sign is there, but the other one's missing.
Right.
Yeah. People like to steal those things.
So that would be a lot less than $100.
Do we know how many street signs are missing?
No. Terry's back there laughing.
I mean, that'd be a.
Well,
first
this would be,
question.
you eat an elephant one bite at a time. This would be an ongoing thing.
Yeah,
that would
well,
be-
let's
that would take-
let's say reduce it by 2,000.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the
At lea-
suggestion.
I think-
Or
okay.
3, 2 or 3.
And we're working right now to migrate funds to what line item?
Code enforcement, I think.
Code enforcement? Okay.
We got
That-
code
that's where
enforcement and appraisals.
Oh, well, that's true. The appraisals went up 2,000.
I think that we probably, just due to safety and infrastructure perspectives, would probably have a better chance of finding funding options for street signs versus code enforcement. So, you know, if we can funnel some stuff over.
What do you mean?
Well, for instance, under the American Rescue Plan, I have no idea if it's accurate or not, but it makes better sense in my head that making sure that there are street signs so that 911 services can get to people in case of emergency is more likely to be funded under that project than city ordinances. Maybe I could be completely wrong,
I
but
don't think so.
It's a logical.
not the type of
It's a
program?
logical deduction.
I wish, but I didn't. I never. That's not one of them.
Okay.
Now I'll tell you one thing that's in there: culverts, storm drains.
Oh, okay. Well, that could be some of the material costs then.
That could be material cost. That you could funnel money out of material cost.
Oh, how do you quantify that?
Well, if that's labor and materials, then that could be quite a bit of savings to
Yeah,
the
that's
to
true.
the road work line items.
The challenge is quantifying it.
Well,
It's,
like I say, we
it
can.
says here,
Oh,
Jan-
CD is.
Let's count this. Go ahead.
revenue replacement or as a provision of a larger water, sewer, stormwater, or broadband infrastructure project.
Say that again?
You could use, generally only through revenue replacement or as a provision of a larger water, sewer, stormwater, or broadband infrastructure project. You could use those funds for.
We currently have approximately $80,000 that's outstanding on the 2015 flood projects. That's a possible source of additional revenue, but that's dependent upon the Public Works Department being able to get to those locations and get those finished, and then so Missy can get the billing into Tatum.
What's the turnaround been looking like on those projects for?
Well, let's see. It was 2015. That's 6 years.
Right, but it was 4 years before we even started seeing checks roll back in.
One of the bigger projects was one that just got completed as the crew was doing that Mill Creek replacement of that large culvert there.
Has that been submitted?
No, not yet.
I knew that was part of the 2015 that culvert that was lost.
What is the charge for culvert installation now? And how is that done? It's the process has kind of changed. It's been a moving target.
The fee for a culvert install is now at $400. That's not including the cost of the culvert. That's just for the Public Works Department to do the installation.
We can start a culvert installation business unit within the company.
We have to charge more than that. That's our cost.
Well, but if you think about, for instance, the rebuilding of 22nd Street in the back, where we're going to have to go in and do some replacements on things back there, and we're going to have to make a match at $500 a piece, 10 of those would be a nice little chunk of that we're going to owe towards the project. So areas like that will be opportunities where we could use funds potentially, because that is a larger scale. If I'm not mistaken, what you said, if it's part of a larger stormwater and reclamation project, those would be opportunities for us to save.
22nd Street would definitely
Yeah.
be a big project.
And we'd actually be able to double dip on that, because we'd be working towards our match, plus we'd be using it out of potentially the American Rescue Plan funds. So that'd be
I don't know if you can do that, but It could,
We gotta be careful with
it
that,
could
that
decrease,
money.
you don't wanna do, but you could decrease the cost of the project. And maybe go a little further or something, but don't even say double dip that. No, 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 no. They don't like that.
Gotcha.
Then you experience clawback.
No clause.
That's an ugly term.
Oh, I think that's why they use the term to scare us into.
It's serious.
It
Serious.
is. Oh, listen. Yeah.
Mayor, I'm not interested in actually putting numbers to lines for this particular request, but in regards to looking at our IT infrastructure and services and maintenance and equipment and whatnot in the future, I think it would be a good idea for each of the three primary departments of office administration, Public Works, and the City Marshal's Department to each have their own line for IT hardware and services independently, so that next year when we get there, hopefully we'll be able to track some costs this coming year and understand better. And then next year it would be easy to actually drop numbers into those lines so that we can start tracking those independently. Because like this year with Terry's crew, they had a sizable hardware injection that didn't necessarily have a line item for it to budget to. So I think getting that line in there this year would give us something to track against next year. I'm not requesting any number be put to it, but simply having the line
Having a
item
bucket to
built.
collect the dollars.
Correct. That way we can track it this next season, and we can work towards a balanced budget for that line item by looking at the year.
Yep.
Office Administration, Public Works, and the City Marshal's Department. And that would be lines for hardware / software, and services.
You need one for council also.
Do we fall under Office Admin?
Is that all the same one?
We
Is
do.
that a yes?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, administration, yeah.
I don't know if code enforcement might need its own line item for that as well, because they're broken out completely separate from those other departments.
Well, this person that does code enforcement also does all these other
Office
things. So, I
admin?
mean, you can't separate that out, David.
That's fine then. I didn't know if it was a necessity or not. I just saw it as split out already.
Right. Okay. Any other suggestions? Suggestions?
How many hours did we say the deputies?
80.
80.
80?
We went from 64 to 80.
Terry left.
Well, I just wonder if him and Mike do 35 hours a week,
32.
32.
Oh, mhm.
Okay, and how many hours will it give the third deputy? What's coming on? Huh? 4 hours? 4 of them, 4 deputies. Or 4 deputies.
Now keep in
They-
mind,
they'd
this
have
is
an extra, there would be a couple shifts per week that they can put whomever in.
yeah. So
It
keep
doesn't matter how many people.
keep in
it's
mind-
just they have the extra 16 hours.
right. The 80 hours a week is a pool of hours that those 4 deputies pull from. So if Terry works 40 hours and Mike works 40 hours, then there's really not a budgeted amount of hours for anybody else to work that week. But we
Right.
have 4 people that can cover shifts.
Yeah, they've got a total of 80 hours, and how they divide that up. And they've got, Terry has several deputies that he'll call in on a, once in a while basis. But they're not like Michael and Terry that are pretty much considered full-time.
And they all get $20 an hour.
Currently, yeah.
Which I'm not questioning why, they should. I'm just questioning.
Oh, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to give people more, but
Right.
I'll make some adjustments based on,
Question for you, Mayor.
yes, sir.
Under operations on page 2, dues and fees. We got 2,000 in the budget.
That's, you know, it's like debt cog, TML, those things those are important.
We spent 741 this year. If I'm not reading it, unless I'm reading it wrong. We had budgeted 2,000.
I believe we're about to get a bill from DebtCog for,
Some of the things we
They're-
paid toward the end of the year and
yeah.
we haven't paid them yet.
Okay.
This is on, what, through July so far?
Yeah.
Through August.
Yeah, we haven't,
And we're also looking at the Texas Forest Country.
yeah, the Economic Development Corporation. And of which we're a member, and then the TML and debt cog.
Okay. Well, maybe that's not one then. I'm looking at the numbers, what I have here, and not year, I'm not looking, I don't have year to date. and
Gotcha,
That might have been beneficial.
right. Oh, yeah, chamber. Maybe this coming year we'll pay.
So we're gonna see another budget,
Yes, sir.
sort of, kind of, maybe not.
We'll see. Yeah, right. And definitely, we're gonna have to add that money for the appraisals. I mean, that's no question. We have to pay it. So,
Were you keeping a running total on where we were cutting in the budget lines? As we come
yeah,
up, have we come up close to the,
we've come up with
More than-
3,500.
more than the increase on the appraisals?
Yeah,
So we're good there.
yeah.
We came up with what, $3,500 so far?
Right.
And that's looking at, without making any adjustments to personnel and public works,
Mm-hmm.
or to the new part-time person,
Right.
which could give us some flexibility.
That's real progress, I think.
And then we're looking at a tax rate of either 0.658
Mm-hmm.
or 0.67,
6717. So it's 6.
something like that. And then we're also gonna have a 5,000 over 65 exemption.
Absolutely. So yeah, everything's gonna be juggled. We're gonna we're gonna end up with new figures. And as you know, as I send out the information, as I get the information, like about what it will be, we've all definitely in agreement on the over 65. So that's gonna adjust figures. And so as soon as I get those figures, then I'll let y'all know, and you can look at how it affects and I'll adjust the whole thing based on those figures.
I think
It
it's worthwhile pointing out that they don't automatically get that over 65 deduction. They have to go and apply for it.
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll let people know that.
Yeah, they have to place the appraisal district on notice that of age.
Once we pass it.
Correct.
Most of us already have the over 65 exemption from the county and.
Oh, you know, that's right. That's good point.
So.
Good point.
Yeah.
So it's probably already
Oh,
on
so
record.
okay, that's true.
It's already on record. Thank
Yep.
you, Tommy.
Well, see, what we
You're a
need,
lot smarter than you look.
what we need over and above what we have for the appraisals is 1,761. So, we got 3,500. Hey, that's a step
It's
toward the,
half.
yep. So,
What did you say we ended up in appraisals? I mean, in,
with
We-
appraisal, see, I had increased it by 1,000 to 2,550, or 25,500. And it's gonna be 27,261, so that's an additional 1,761, which we've already figured out how to get that from, just by reducing the signs, that's, you know. So I'm suggesting that the other amount go on to code enforcement.
and what would that put code enforcement out, you said?
Okay, let's see, we got. Come on, equals, minus. It would be 1,739. So it brings it up to $2,939, which is not ideal, but hey, we're adjusting here and there. And I will talk to our public works supervisor regarding that part-time person.
You know, if you wanted to reduce the hours for our new clerical person to 20 hours, you could change the hours of the office from 10 to 5 to 10 to 3.
Excellent idea.
You can do that.
Excellent.
You could adjust, you can also, I mean, once we see how many, what you need to cut, maybe it's 22 hours a week.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 24.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, that would be a good thing, you know, just, probably, it would give the staff a lot more time to work on things if they're,
And
if
it
the
could-
public isn't just constantly in,
in and out the door.
right. Because there's no rule that says it has to be 10 to 5.
That's right.
No.
Interruptions are a time
Good,
killer.
good thinking. God, Sammy, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me look at that too. Did you figure, Will, how much that would save us?
Which
Let's see,
one?
The part-time person.
No, I didn't.
8 hours.
Well, I had a rough number in here.
Okay,
At 20 hours, it saved us probably $6,000.
right.
But those are ballpark.
I'm looking at what I allotted.
520.
We had 18,520.
I was just, what was the hourly rate?
I'm not sure.
Okay, part-time, we were gonna do $12, okay,
Gosh, I have so many notes on mine, I can't keep up with it anymore.
I know.
See,
Oh,
20
listen.
times
Oh, my
52
I understand.
is 1040.
Times 52 equals, that would be 12,480 as opposed to 18,520. So that would save us $6,000.
$6,040.
Good thinking, yeah.
Where's
All
that,
right.
Will?
It is on page 3 at the top.
Oh, 12,480?
So that saves, yeah, 12,480 as opposed to 18,520.
So there's 6,000.
So that would,
That's
$6,040.
They could go to code enforcement, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay, plus, let's see here. Plus. Which brings up code enforcement to 8,979.
Yep. That's what I came up with.
Okay,
So what do we have for code enforcement now? 8,000?
979.
said 39, but I may have misunderstood you when you first said it.
What? Oh,
No,
yeah,
I'm mumbling, sorry.
okay. All right. Any other comments right now? Are we pretty good?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I think we've come up with some good suggestions, some good ways to cut here and there and shuffle things around. I promise I will keep you abreast of what I find out. If there's no further discussion or questions, do I
Make a
hear?
motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Didn't even have to finish, right? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:11. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.